Horror on Fox Hill Park. First tonight on our news live at 7. Residents of Fox Hill shaken up after a double murder Monday night. Plus, what police are revealing about one of the victims' alleged run-ins with the law. Plus, government has already made its decision on a rate hike at NIB. However, the minister responsible still tight-lipped on what that is. And will the Long Island MP get a fair trial? He explains why he thinks another parliamentarian may have prejudiced his case. And then in our news at 7:30, a man in his 20s is killed in an industrial accident on Grand Bahama. Our news live at 7 starts now. Welcome to our news live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kendino Knowles. The grim financial state of the National Insurance Fund taking center stage in Parliament as the state minister responsible is again sounding the alarm. Berthany McDermott has the story coming up in a moment. But first, the murder count climbing by 2 last night after 2 men were shot and killed on the intersection of Fox Hill Road and Bryce Road. Police telling our news they have already arrested 4 people in connection with this, all between the ages of 18 and 25. Marlena Leonard was on the scene last night and spoke with the area representative.
Chief Superintendent Michael Johnson giving a breakdown of what happened in Fox Hill on Monday night.
These 2 persons was in this area conversing when 2 males came from the rear of a trailer that is just north of the Jungle Club. One of these males was armed with a high-powered weapon. They approached these individuals and opened fire, shooting them multiple times about the body.
Member of Parliament for Fox Hill Fred Mitchell was on the scene last night speaking to constituents. He's concerned because it's not the first time something like this has happened at the park.
The problem is with 23 bullets fired, bullet hit somebody who's not one of them. And I'm not saying that should be the level of justice, but, someone gets killed who has nothing to do with it. So, we just got to get the guns off the streets.
One of the victims was a man in his mid-30s who was known to police. Johnson tells us he was being electronically monitored and was on bail for several murders. As for the other victim, police say he was in his late 30s and was not known to police.
I have said this on numerous occasions, and the commissioner also reiterated this, that if you are familiar with someone who is on bail for a serious offense or serious offenses, you would be careful and be careful of hanging around persons of that said character, even if it's your family members, because you could end up being a target as well.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
All right, and we'll have more on that coming up in our news at 7:30. But now to this. A 42-year-old man of Fortune Bay, Grand Bahama, was arraigned in the magistrate's court for unlawful sexual intercourse. Police say they received a report from the Department of Social Services of an alleged sexual assault involving a 13-year-old girl. Prosecutors say the abuse lasted 3 years. The name of the suspect is not being revealed to protect the victim's identity. The man, who was not required to enter a plea to the charge, has been remanded to the Department of Corrections until April 25th for a voluntary bill of indictment. And following that violent brawl in Grand Bahama involving a civilian, a police officer, along with several other men, residents there are questioning their safety when it comes to interacting with police. National Security Minister Wayne Monroe addressing the issue during today's weekly cabinet briefing, saying, simply put, police are human too.
Human beings in every profession, occupation. Some are good, most are good, and a few are bad. Every commissioner of police I've ever heard talk say that they are keen not to be associated with the bad apples. So I've said it, and I was criticized for telling the public, you can record the police. The commissioner of police has said the same thing. And the issue is this: after you do this recording now, you have to make a complaint.
Now, the violent act, which was caught on video, showed several men, as we said, beating a man on the ground outside of a bar.
You have to be prepared to come forward, because the police officer will be given the same due process that other persons are. And so you have the police complaints and corruption branch, and they have a court of inquiry for subordinate officers, contracted officers. And if you don't get satisfaction there, there's a police complaints inspectorate based in the Ministry of National Security, which is civilian, to whom you may complain if you say the system isn't working properly.
All right, now 6 men appearing in the magistrate's court in connection with this afternoon. We've got the full story coming up in our news at 7:30. Much more to get to, including that in a moment, as well as possible losses at NIB. Brittany McDermott has the latest on the Social Security Fund, but for now, it's time for your first look at temperatures. Meteorologist Greg Thompson, he's in the Weather Center with the latest. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Indian, and happy evening, everybody. It's comfortable outside. Temperatures are in the mid-70s. We are going to see those temperatures fall off even further. Mostly clear skies. Your winds out of the north-northwest at 9 miles per hour, and your field-slight temperature is at 75. Temperatures around the islands tonight, right now, in Grand Bahama, it's 78, 79 in Marshall, Barbacoa, 80 across in Alistown, Bimini, as well as in Great Harbor Key and in Nicholstown, 79 in Governor's Harbor, into the central Bahamas, 77 in Kemps Bay. We pick up more 79s in Arthurstown, Cat Island, and in Georgetown. 77 in Cobra Towns and Salvador. Deadman's Key, 78. Southeast Bahamas temperatures near the 80-degree mark there. 79 in Duncantown, Ragged Island. More 78s in Colonel Hill, Cricket Island, Delectable Bay, Abrahams Bay, Matthew Town, Inago, 79, and our neighbors in the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands. You guys are 77 at this hour. Satellite view, ridge of high pressures across us, and that's going to continue to dominate our weather. There's a weak frontal boundary that was just to the north of the Bahamas. Some showers and isolated thunderstorms with that now moving out towards the east. But there's a front, a very weak one, that's going to be getting in here sometime tomorrow evening. We expect the winds to be picking up once the front gets in here. So breezy conditions expected through tomorrow. That's your first check on weather. Stick with us. So look at your extended forecast this week.
Thanks, Greg. And still to come on our news, the minister responsible for NIB paints a grim picture of the fund's financial status. One Christian Council president says Bahamians should be more concerned about politicians' pockets than audits of the church. Plus, our news is live in New York City as the Nassau Paradise Island Promotion Board brings the Bahamas to the Big Apple. That's coming up when our news returns.
Just when Leo was about to buy this useless pair of Hands underwear, he remembered that
The National Insurance Fund taking center stage in Parliament as the state minister responsible once again sounding the alarm over its viability. The minister insisting if nothing is done, the fund will suffer major losses. Brittany McDermott has the latest.
State Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Miles LaRota, again painting a grim picture of what seems to be the worsening state of the National Insurance Fund. While contributing to the mid-year budget debate, LaRota said we cannot continue to kick the can down the road, saying NIB is projected to lose around $98 million without a rate increase. LaRota telling parliamentarians government has made a decision on the NIB rate hike, but he didn't say what that position is.
As these numbers are not sustainable over the near term, the time to act is now.
The Nassau Guardian recently reported that Cabinet approved an increase effective July 1. LaRota says a goal has been set to collect some $300 million in contributions. He also laid out the declining financial situation at NIB since 1990, which shows billions of dollars in loss over the years.
On our first tranches that came from monies into the board, some $16 million was invested with a private Bahamian company, and the space of 3 months would have revealed a profit of some $2 million.
The Bahamas Public Services Union President Kimsley Ferguson also weighing in. He says he's concerned about the impact this could have on his membership, specifically those who make minimum wage.
If they have to experience a 1.5% increase, it's going to diminish the increase that they would have gotten to at least about $20, so to speak. Shortly thereafter, if you divide that by 30 days, you're probably looking at a 69 cents increase, as opposed to them experiencing the complete $37.50.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
All right, Long Island Member of Parliament Adrian Gibson accusing North Abaco MP Kirk Cornish of breaching his privilege and recklessly prejudicing his trial following what Gibson described as nasty and uncalled for comments in Parliament. Gibson added he believes Cornish's comments, which were expunged from the record, will prevent him from a fair trial.
I rise on a point of order. Mr. Deputy, I have had occasion to hear what the member for North Abaco stated in this place in the morning session concerning myself. Let me state emphatically, sir, that the comments made have impacted and infringed upon my personal privilege in the House of Assembly. We have a member in this place who has grossly impacted the privilege of another member.
Gibson pleaded not guilty to charges of bribery, money laundering, conspiracy, and fraud while he served as executive chairman of the Water and Sewerage Corporation. Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper immediately interrupted Gibson, saying there is a procedure for breach of privilege, noting it must be put in writing. Deputy Speaker Sylvanus Petty agreed, but Gibson didn't back down.
There's no other member in this place charged but me. There's no member in this place who's subjected to facing 56 counts, ruling myself. The Constitution of this country guarantees me a presumption of innocence. This is still the Bahamas, right? This is a matter before the courts, and therefore sub judice. Yet, Mr. Deputy, a member deliberately stated and restated in this public forum. He made comments that are in breach of the rules and a blatant disregard for the prejudice that he has caused me. The member for North Abaco deliberately and recklessly prejudiced my trial.
And now to Bahamas Christian Council President Bishop Delton Fernando, who is responding to critics who say local churches should be audited. Fernando defending the church, saying it is transparent, and he challenged critics to pursue their political parties with the same energy.
All I say to them is, if the church, you have a problem that the church should be audited, but then your political party should be audited. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't say something that because it sounds good. The state and government are not auditing political parties. And they are the biggest receivers of unmonitored finances in our country. It is not happening in our churches.
Fernando says the church is open to audits if state money is collected. And he doubled down, saying that government and the public should be more concerned about what politicians are doing.
What's wrong is wrong, and what's right is right. In other jurisdictions, we have faith-based. The only way you have to give an audit is if you take state money. We worked this out the last administration. We're willing to do that if we're taking state money, but we will not allow government to be a hypocrite, or any government, to come and audit the church and you won't audit yourself. You won't we want to know where's the money going in politics, and we want to know who's giving it. Can we start
there? When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as 2 out of 4 Americans kidnapped in Mexico are found dead. Plus, our state minister for the public service delivers CARICOM's statement on women to the 67th Annual Commission on the Status of Women. And later, it's winter in New York City. What better than getting a taste of the warm and sunny Bahamas in the midst of it all? Our news is live in New York City. We'll tell you why on the other side of this break. This is our news. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. Mexican authorities confirming 2 of 4 U.S. citizens kidnapped in the northern Mexican border city of Matamoros last week have been found dead. Mexican Governor Marital said 2 others are alive, one of whom was wounded. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre in a briefing today said U.S. officials are in touch with the families.
Attacks on U.S. citizens are unacceptable, no matter where or under what circumstances they happen. We will continue to work closely with the Mexican government to ensure justice is done in this case. And we have imposed powerful new sanctions against cartel organizations in recent weeks. We remain committed to applying the full weight of our efforts and resources to counter them.
China's foreign minister blaming the United States for rising tensions between Washington and Beijing and says if the U.S. does not change its path, there will be conflict and confrontation. Yang Qin telling a news conference today the U.S. has been engaged in suppression and containment rather than fair or rule-based competition. Relations between the 2 superpowers recently worsened after the U.S. shot down what it said was a Chinese spying device.
The United States claimed to be competing to win against China rather than seeking conflict. But in fact, the United States' so-called competition is total containment and suppression, a zero-sum game in which you die and I live. If the United States does not hit the brakes but continues to speed down the wrong path, no amount of guardrails can prevent derailing or a crash, and there will surely be a conflict and confrontation.
Barbie is celebrating International Women's Day on Wednesday with the release of a doll in the likeness of Black female space scientist Dr. Maggie Adarin Peacock. The company announced today it was adding her to the line for her work promoting STEM careers to girls. And Guyana's Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony says work is progressing smoothly at the sites of 6 new regional hospitals. Anthony told the Department of Public Information the contractor has already completed land preparation at the sites. He says each of the modern hospitals will be 65,000 square feet and equipped with 75 hospital beds and is expected to ease the burden on the country's main medical facility. Well, here at home, Minister of State for the Public Service, Pia Glover, delivering a statement on behalf of CARICOM at the 67th Annual Commission on the Status of Women, the event which was held at the United Nations headquarters in New York, that is happening during Women's History Month. The Commission on the Status of Women allows for the global community to come together to discuss common international challenges, highlight region-specific gender issues, and take account of the progress made towards gender equality. This year's theme focuses on technology.
This digital transformation is providing new avenues for the economic empowerment of women and can contribute to the achievement of gender equality. With access to the internet and skills to use digital technologies, they can pursue education and find better paid jobs, start new businesses, promote and sell products in new markets, access and exchange information, as well as network and increase participation in public life. They can also work flexibly and distantly.
Still to come in our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was March 7th and the birth of the late Arthur Dion Hanna. Plus, Greg is back with your extended weather forecast. And then in our news at 7:30, a mother pleads for help in finding her son who went missing last month. That story when our news continues.
This segment of the news is brought to you by H.G. Christie. List your home in Grand Bahama with H.G. Christie. Visit our new office in the Port Lacaya Marketplace. H.G. Christie, celebrating over 100 years of service.
A new art exhibition is on display in Grand Bahama's Rand Nature Center titled One Goat and Three Birds, and it explores the impact of Hurricane Dorian and climate change. The title was inspired by the famous 2019 statement from then Minister of Environment Ramon Ferreira. The event opened on Friday night, offering an element outside of the art with speakers tackling the science behind the impact of climate change and the ecosystems around us. Artists Lori Tuchel, Chantal Bethel, and Joe Morasco tells us more.
So we thought a lot about what that statement meant, and we decided to explore that a bit more.
Climate change is what actually created the show in a way, because we were really trying to authentically express the displacement of the people, and the displacement and the plight of the people was created by Dorian. So we needed for people to be aware of what's happening to our island, and people need to be educated on how each of us can help.
It's now time to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was March 7th, including the release of a miracle baby. Take a look. On On this day in Bahamian history in 1928, former Governor General Arthur Dion Hanna was born in Acklands. Hanna entered politics in the late 1950s under the newly formed Progressive Liberal Party and was elected to the House of Assembly in 1960. He served as a member of Parliament until 1992. Hanna holds the distinction of being the longest-serving Deputy Prime Minister in Bahamian history. He also served as Governor General from 2006 to 2011. Hanna died on August 3, 2021. He was 93. And finally, on this day in 2012, Miracle Shakira Joseph, who was born with a conjoined parasitic twin, was released from the neonatal intensive care unit of Princess Margaret Hospital after spending 2 months. The surgery to separate the two was performed in January that year and was the first of its kind in the Bahamas. At the time of her release, Miracle was in good health as doctors said she would likely live a normal life. Well, the winter season in the United States is the best time to remind Americans of the alternative. That's just next door, and tonight, the Nassau Paradise Island Promotion Board hosted dozens of top-tier media to a taste of the Bahamas in the heart of the New York and tri-state area. Jerome Sawyer is in New York shooting for an upcoming episode of On the Record. He joins us live with a glimpse into the event. Jerome?
Well, Canino, we're about a half hour out since this event ended, but this is as good as it gets when it comes to networking. What the Nassau Paradise Island Promotion Board was able to do was bring together some of the top-tier journalists and media personnel in the business, specifically those who focus on travel, and give an idea of what's on the agenda for the Bahamas and encourage them to encourage folks to come and visit. Now, we had an opportunity for a sneak peek earlier today.
CEO of the Nassau Paradise Island Promotion Board, Joy Gibberlew, in final preparations Tuesday morning at the Institute of Culinary Education in New York, the site of one of the largest media promotional events for the year. Dozens of representatives from some of the biggest North American media houses are on the guest list for tonight's event.
I think we all are very familiar with an expression, out of sight is out of mind. And I cannot stress how real that statement is when we look at travel and tourism. Every destination is heavily promoted. The event tonight is strictly a media event. We're inviting top-tier media, all top-tier media, to come and give them an update on Nassau Paradise Island. So many exciting things happening there.
While learning about the destination's new offerings and old favorites, tonight's experience is all about recreating that tourism experience with the help of Chef Jamal Small and mixologist Marv Cunningham, while one of the Bahamas' best, Lady E, will bring the entertainment.
Tourism is our #1 industry. Tourism is our bread and butter. So whatever we have as a Bahamian country, whatever we can put out there to the world to get persons to come to us, to spend money with us, to experience us, we need to galvanize, come together and do that.
So CEO Joy Gibberlew gave a great report of all of the developments in tourism, specifically what's happening in the Nassau Paradise Island space. Some of the things she talked about, the long-awaited opening of the cruise port that's still under construction, even the highly anticipated 50th anniversary independence celebrations slated for later this year. There was also a major announcement about some scholarship programs through the University of the Bahamas and the Lyford Key Foundation. And finally, something that's very near and dear to my heart, the restoration of the Queen's Staircase. So we have lots to tell you about. Of course, it's going to be coming up in later newscasts, as well as a program on the record, which is one of the key reasons why we're here. But for now, we're live in New York, reporting for Our News. I'm Jerome Sawyer. Canino?
All right, thanks a lot, Jerome Sawyer, reporting for us live tonight from New York City. Thanks, Jerome. Now, if you want to watch that story again and for all of today's top stories, you can visit ournews.bs. It's going to do it for all.
Yes, Ken, it's great to see Jerome in New York and to see that this little country can go so far.
Right? Hopefully brings us back some of that cheesecake we asked him for.
I hope so. Thanks, Ken. Well, we've got the latest from investigators on that double murder in Fox Hill last night and a mother's search for her missing son.
Getting to the source, new tonight on Our News Live at 7:30.
Why CARICOM may be setting its target on American gun dealers as the region grapples with crime and gangs.
The National Security Minister is speaking out tonight after a man on bail for 6 murders was killed last night in the Fox Hill community. His comments straight ahead on Our News.
And an industrial accident on Grand Bahama leaves 1 man dead. How safety measures and procedures may be changing. Plus, have you seen this man? Sonia Storr says her son Joshua has been missing for a month, and she's exhausting all avenues to find him. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment. With over Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. Police have arrested 4 people in last night's double homicide in Fox Hill. Investigators telling Our News the suspects are all between the ages of 18 and 25. Now, this latest shooting reigniting concerns about releasing murder suspects on bail. Well, tonight, the National Security Minister is weighing in, revealing one of the 2 men murdered in Fox Hill last night was on bail and had been a suspect in 6 murders. Jamila Mizik reports.
Following that double homicide in the Fox Hill community last evening, today, Minister of National Security Wayne Munro revealing that one of the victims was on bail for 6 murders. It's a situation he's calling absolutely unacceptable. In recent months, several people released on bail have suffered a similar fate. It's an issue National Security Minister Wayne Munro says they're working to address.
We are going to be urging the court that there should be remand not only for the person's safety, but for the public safety, because we've seen any number of incidents so far where other persons have been caught up.
Police have expressed concern, saying once they've captured the alleged suspects and they're brought before the courts, in no time some of those individuals are back to committing serious crimes, which is why Munro says police intelligence is compiling the evidence needed to present to the court to avoid releasing suspects from murder-related charges on bail.
And sadly, the incident last night with the murder of the second individual eloquently demonstrates that releases on bail pose a danger not only to the person charged, who can be presumed innocent, but also to the public.
And fast-tracking court cases for swifter justice has also been an issue of concern. However, Munro says he's pleased to see that the Chief Justice is seeking to make steps to address the vexing problem of moving cases forward. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
CARICOM countries are taking a stronger stance when it comes to trying to slow down the flow of guns from the United States into the region. And Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell says the Bahamas may be taking an even stronger stance in the near future.
The Trinidad government, under the auspices of CARICOM, will be hosting a summit of all the leaders of the Caribbean again to try and bring some more pressure to bear on the Americans about these guns and how these guns are here. We are considering joining a case against gun manufacturers in the United States because of the looseness with which guns are now being exported out of the U.S. so easily.
The Foreign Affairs Minister tells us it's not only about the guns themselves, but the moral implications that gun violence can spread in a community. Mitchell, who also serves as the Member of Parliament for Fox Hill, used some of his own constituents as an example of the emotional aftermath violence can leave behind.
This is like an avalanche of bloodshed and horror, and it's because these weapons are getting into people's hands. And of course, the moral fiber of the society is under a lot of strain. People's lives don't mean anything. These people don't have a sense of what is painful to other people. Last night, I spoke to 4 women whose sons had all been murdered within the last 10 years. I mean, you imagine that, you know, people, and all in similar circumstances. Someone just comes up, and the murders are all unsolved.
6 men appearing before Senior Magistrate Charlton Smith in Court Number 2 in Freeport to answer the charges of causing grievous harm. Police officer Elvano Feaster, along with 28-year-old Kadrico McKenzie, as well as 38-year-old Theodore Davis and 28-year-old Ferran Feaster, 26-year-old Fernando Feaster, and 26-year-old Malik Thomas were the men charged. You may recall that on Saturday, shortly after 1 a.m., police received reports of a brawl at a business on Logwood Road. A recording of that video went viral. Now, officers responded and found 2 men, including a police officer, injured. They all pleaded not guilty and were granted bail in the amount of $4,000 with one suretor. They returned to court in May. Well, a Grand Bahama man is dead following an industrial accident at Executive Marina Management at the Freeport Harbor. The incident took place shortly after 11 this morning. Police telling Our News that the young man was electrocuted. When Our News arrived on the scene, a man's body could be seen lying on the road. He was in his work clothing and lying next to a tractor. Press liaison officer for the Northern Division, ASP Stephen Rolls, speaking with reporters on the scene. He says the man, who was in his late 20s, was pronounced dead by EMS at the scene.
A male employee of an industrial company here at the industrial site at the Freeport Harbor was driving a tractor and moving some garbage from off a ship, when he would have touched the power lines mistakenly, and that resulted in this mishap today.
The Grand Bahama Power Company, as well as other government agencies, were on the scene making assessments to electrical wires in the area. We also spoke to the president of Executive Marina Management, President David Meller, going into more details of the tragic incident. He says the employee accidentally extended the forks on the machine, causing it to hit the power lines.
It's completely operator error. Freeport Power has it's not their fault. You know, he's well aware of the power lines. He's been doing this job for a long time, and I don't know what happened. He just, I guess, forgot about they were there.
The president also explaining the type of employee the deceased was.
He was a diligent, hardworking employee.
And Meller says going forward, additional safety measures will be put in place.
We've spoken with Freeport Power. We're going to have them come down and give all our guys a full safety briefing again on power, and the last thing we want to do is see any one of our employees hurt.
The president says the incident is a huge blow for the Executive Marina Management team, and a meeting will be held for employees tomorrow.
We have a good record, so for this to happen is unfortunate.
8 women have been arrested by police in New Providence for human smuggling. Police say around 3:30 this morning. The mobile unit officers were on routine patrol near Montague Beach when officers observed a woman acting suspiciously while driving a white van. Officers also reportedly observed a vessel pulling away from the docking area. The vehicle was stopped and searched. The driver produced a Bahamian driver's license and exited the van, along with 7 female Haitian immigrants. Immigration officials were contacted and investigations are continuing. Well, another mostly clear evening in the capital tonight. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center live with a look at your weather conditions. Good evening, Greg.
Thanks for that, and good evening, everybody. Very nice evening to get outside. Temperatures comfortable, 76 degrees under mostly clear skies. Your winds out of the north-northwest at 9 miles per hour, and your feels like temperature is at 75. Around the islands tonight, ridge of high pressure still in charge. We have some patchy clouds with an old frontal boundary moving across area, but that's going to exit. We are watching another frontal boundary expected to get near tomorrow with some windy conditions behind that. That's your quick check on weather. Stick with us to look at your extended forecast system.
Still to come on Our News, a leader in the local Christian community says government's approach to the proposed marital rape legislation could be better. He explains how. and Joshua's store mysteriously disappeared 1 month ago. His mother continues her search for her son and needs your help. But first, what is the economic impact of geopolitics around the world? An upcoming Economic Outlook event promises to help you make sense of it. We'll tell you how you can grab a seat when our news continues. President of the Bahamas Christian Council is once again calling for government to discuss amendments to the gender-based violence bill that will criminalize marital rape. Our Joshua Williams has the details.
The much-anticipated amendments to the gender-based violence bill have been widely discussed in political and religious arenas. However, Bahamas Christian Council President Bishop Delton Fernandez says the council is still divided on the matter. He also says the way government is going about these discussions and its approach to the Christian community could be better.
It needs to be discussed. What are the options to achieve the same goal? If you're saying that your amendment is the only way to accomplish it, well then you're going to find yourself in a hard and fast stance. What the state is doing is they're not meeting with the council, but they're going to denominations themselves, and they're having these moments with them. I think it is an approach that could work, that you could go and receive the response directly from the people as you go to their conventions and their meeting, but you have to be there to listen to.
Fernandez says he is against any female being raped or sexually assaulted, but noted that the sanctity of marriage should still be protected.
No woman should be raped. I think everybody can end on that, but we have to protect marriage. Marriage is between a man and a woman, and the sanctity of marriage. If we could find a way to protect whether you're married or non-married from being raped without destroying the sanctity of marriage, let's do it.
When asked about residents expressing concerns that the council only addresses certain issues, Fernandez says,
the council doesn't control the press. The press determines what's on the front of the paper. We're speaking all the time in pulpits all around the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We address issues every day. While you're criticizing, we're the ones counseling, we're the ones on the park, we're the ones holding the candle vigils. I think sometimes we can be salatialized and do things because it sounds good. The church is not going anywhere. What have you done lately?
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
All right, thanks for that report, Joshua. Well, on his first official visit to the Caribbean, President of the Inter-American Development Bank, Elan Goldfein, addressing the 10th annual meeting for Caribbean governors of the IDB opening session in Trinidad and Tobago yesterday, the theme, Partnering for a Resilient Caribbean. The president noting that the IDB can concentrate on 3 important priorities, one of them, social issues.
Battling poverty, inequality in all its dimensions, being everybody access to good public services. We're talking about education, health, and also something that's affecting the region here, food insecurity. All of these are interconnected. All of these are priority. Second, climate. We must make it easier to invest in mitigation, but also adaptation. We need to think of innovative ways to prepare, adapt, and react with agility to natural disasters.
And he says another priority is investing in sustainable physical and digital infrastructure.
Prioritizing regional integration and being able to mobilize private capital. This is the third priority. All of these are key to creating jobs, boosting productivity by promoting regional integration so that we can provide better services and mitigate climate change.
Royal Fidelity will be hosting its 9th annual Economic Outlook on March 14th, and the first time in person since the pandemic. Royal Fidelity Vice President of Investments David Slater says there will be 6 speakers that will cover topics such as the global financial market situation and geopolitics and the economic impact on the globe. He says it's essential the Bahamas views itself in a regional and global context.
Sometimes we get caught up in our own bubble. And this is an opportunity to gain insight from, experts from around the world and experts locally. A lot of businesses have utilized in the past this conference to design some of their own strategies and actually leverage some of the individuals that we introduce to them. So after the fact, they follow up with that individual and reach out to them. And there's additional training or that individuals or companies can do.
We're part of a global picture, right? And in order to get access to the knowledge and insights and experiences that other countries, other business leaders, other communities are having, this is a great way to incorporate those experiences into what we do locally and take the best of that knowledge and help other businesses and help other leaders to be successful.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
When our news comes back from the break, it's been 1 month since Sonia Store's son disappeared without a trace, now faring for the worst. She needs your help to find him, but first...
Plus, coming up in sports for tonight, the University of the Bahamas and other universities set to take Grand Bahama by storm. We'll give you details coming up in sports tonight.
And later, Barry University partners with the Ministry of Health to put their best foot forward. We'll tell you how when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. An annual medical humanitarian mission between the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Bahamas Pediatric Medical Association, and the Barry University School of Pediatric Medicine is underway this week. Consultant head of pediatric surgery and medicine, Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Danny Johnson says.
So what we're trying to do this week is we do a humanitarian and medical mission where normally we'll see 500 patients in our backlog, mainly diabetic feet. We will do maybe 100 surgical interventions this week. You see from gangrene, you see tendinitis, you see sports injuries, chronic ulcers, small ulcers, large ulcers, infections, skin conditions, bony abnormalities, neuropathy, vascular problems. And it's a screening. We screen first, and then once we have screened, then we treat.
Now, Associate Dean of Clinical Education at Barry University, Dr. Shanika Hill says it started in 2020 as a hurricane relief response post-Hurricane Dorian, and after they saw almost 700 people, they realized there was a great need here. She says a unique issue in the Bahamas is the ratio of podiatrists to patients.
Diabetes overall is a pandemic. You know, there are thousands, hundreds, millions of people with diabetes across the world. I think the fact that you have not a lot of podiatrists here, and the fact that the access to the public podiatrist here, because there's only one, Dr. Johnson. So to get an appointment with Dr. Johnson can sometimes be weeks, months, you know, and if you have something that's urgent, it can sometimes lead for you to go to the hospital, and then we're talking about limb loss, amputation, and that's honestly what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to save limbs, save lives.
Grand Bahama gearing up to host Island Relays Bahamas in track and field. Meantime, the Mingos continue to play well in local hoops. Here's Marcellus Hall with a check on sports.
All right, thanks, Natalia. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Well, the Carifta Track and Field Championships are scheduled for next month here in New Providence. However, Grand Bahama will have a little preamble, if you will, as this month they'll be hosting a major track and field event featuring universities from across the United States and our very own University of the Bahamas. Let's take a closer look at what's ahead. The island of Grand Bahama setting up to host another top-notch track and field event this month. Island Relays Bahamas scheduled for March 17th and 18th at the GB Sports Complex. Now, the event will feature a total of 6 universities, including our very own University of the Bahamas, University of Oklahoma, Arizona, Texas A&M, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. And speaking of the University of the Bahamas, they recently took on the Great Whites in the New Providence Basketball Association, picking up the action here. Theo Grant, he finds Delano Armbruster for 3, 1 of 4 for him on the evening. Mingos up 7-3 early. Mingos now on the break. Aquante Edgecombe with the dunk. He had 11 points on the evening. Game tied at 22. Jumping now to the 4th. Mingos able to seal the deal. They get the win here, 81-64.
We came into the game. We just had a really good game last week. So we came into the game with a lot of confidence. We had practice all week. So we practiced hard. And we came and we wanted to play fast like usual. We feel like we're in very good shape. We wanted to shoot the ball well, we wanted to play great defense, rebound well, and limit turnovers, and I feel like we were able to do a pretty good job of that for most part of the game, so that's what helped us get the win.
New Providence Basketball Association Division II action last night at Air Valley. That saw a pretty good ball game as the Rebels in the purple, they came back from 12 points down in the second half. They beat the RC Lickers Eagles 86-84 on a buzzer beater by Brian Bain, Andrew Strawn, and Kristen Monroe. They had 14 points apiece in the win. Alexio Francis, he had 22 in the losing cause. And there it is, your check on sports here on this Tuesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Italia.
Still ahead on our news tonight, have you seen this man? Joshua Storr has been missing for 1 month, and now his mother needs her help. Plus, Greg is back in the Weather Center with your extended weather forecast. Stay with us. Welcome back to our news. Can we look forward to more sunny skies this week? Well, Greg is back in the Weather Center now with our extended forecast. Greg?
Thanks again, Natalia. Welcome back, everybody. Yeah, we can see some sunny skies. There is a weak front that's going to be approaching us by tomorrow, but the moisture associated with one that was by us is now exiting. Not much in terms of any showers expected with the second front, but winds will be picking up, so it's going to be breezy for the balance of the week before winds fall off for the weekend. And we could see maybe an isolated or a spotty shower with that system. This is future forecast showing that moisture with the first front out of here. Second front comes in, drops into the northwest Bahamas Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, and then it quickly exit and high pressure builds back across us for the balance of the week. Boating forecast for all areas tonight, those winds will be light and variable initially until early parts of tomorrow morning, but they will be picking up once the front goes through. North to northeast winds behind that front, 15 to 20 knots, caution flag posted. Sea is very rough, 4 to 6 feet over the open waters. Your high tide will be at 8 p.m. tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, 1 or 2 showers expected with the front, but the second front expected. That should bring us a couple isolated showers. And then by early next week, we're looking for some very nice weather. That's a look at our weather. Back to you, Natalia.
Sounds great. Well, a Bahama mother is searching for a 24-year-old son. She says the last time she spoke to her son Joshua Storr was a month ago. Joshua, who is from Grand Bahama, was living in New Providence. His mother traveled to Nassau for the second time today to search for him. Now she's calling on the community to help her solve this mystery.
The last time I spoke to Joshua was on the 7th of February. He called me after 6 in the morning, and he was frantic. He was stating that, someone was trying to kill him.
That's Sonia Storr, the mother of 24-year-old Joshua Storr, describing the last conversation she had with her son. Joshua, who is from Grand Bahama, moved to New Providence back in October 2022, searching for employment. He found a job as a security officer and worked nights. She says following their last conversation, she tried to call him, but to no avail.
Joshua was living alone. I was not aware of his exact location. I knew he said that he lived in the area of Baintown. I had no other contact to call in terms of where the company he worked for or his boss number. These were things that I had to later find out.
And as for why Joshua told his mother during their last phone call that someone was trying to kill him,
that what was very strange to me, because my son is more of a loner. He doesn't really go out much. He can be sociable, but he is very antisocial to a point.
She says as a mother, the situation is hurtful.
Seen it, I've watched it, I've read about it, but it never dawned that, I would have to be dealing with it. And I try to appear strong because I have younger kids that I have to be able to explain things to.
And to anyone that may know the whereabouts of Joshua, Storr is asking you to please reach out to her at telephone number 819-4415 or the police.
I'm still pleading with the public to please, anything, it doesn't matter what it is, please just reach out to someone.
All right, and to watch that story again, you can visit ournews.bs. You can also like and share your favorite stories on our Facebook page, Our News Bahamas. And with that, we thank you for joining us for Our News Tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.